People who've been watching my channel for about a month now, and that's how long it's existed, and thank you everybody who has watched it, liked, and subscribed. That's helped my channel grow way faster than I ever thought was possible. I mean, there's all this good tech news coming out, and I think that's helped me out. Anyway, the point is, if you've been watching me for a while, you know that one of the main things I've been thinking about is the AMD GPUs, the Big Navi GPUs. And I've been thinking about it so much that I've had some comments accusing me of being like an AMD fanboy, or is this an AMD channel? And no, this is a channel where I talk about the tech stuff that I'm interested in, which right now is the GPU market. So what this video is about is I'm actually legitimately really trying to figure out, am I going to buy a Big Navi GPU on launch day? Am I an AMD fanboy? Absolutely not. In my current machine right now, I have a RTX 2070 and I've been really happy with it. And before that, I had a GTX 970 and I was really happy with it. And I got that near launch, so I think that was about 6 years ago. So I've been a happy NVIDIA GPU customer for 6 years now. And while I'm not an NVIDIA fanboy, a company can earn a little bit of brand loyalty from people by offering a good product that the customer is happy with. And I've never had any issues or complaints whatsoever about my 970 or my 2070. Because of that, if NVIDIA had offered a product at launch that met the needs I was looking for, I would have bought it and I wouldn't have been on this Big Navi hype train, because regardless of if they're as good or even slightly better, if I found exactly what I wanted from NVIDIA at launch and they launched first, I would have been right on top of it. Why did I not jump on the Ampere bandwagon right at launch like a lot of people did? Well, you might just be thinking it's because I couldn't get one. Well, I honestly didn't look because they weren't offering what I was looking for. So my issue is that the 3070 isn't quite enough for what I'm looking for. I game an ultra-wide 1440p, and I think that the 3070 will be knocking 1440p out of the park, but I think it doesn't have enough headroom at 4K or enough VRAM for future proofing. I think it's fine right now, but if you want to run things at ultra in the future, 8 gigabytes is a little low at 4K. Now, I'm splitting the difference kind of between a normal 1440 and a 4K monitor. But in terms of future proofing, I like to hang on to my parts for a while. 8 gigabytes, not quite enough, and the performance not quite where I'd want it to be at this resolution from the 3070. So why not the 3080? Well, one thing is it's $200 more. $700 is a lot more than I really want to spend, although I could if they offered me everything that I possibly needed, but it had a couple major drawbacks. One is my power supply unit's a bit small. I've got 650 watts, so if I have to upgrade that, that's extra cost and effort. So the power-hungry nature of those top-end Ampere GPUs is a bit of an issue for me, and the other issue is the 10 gigabytes of VRAM for that price, because I think 10 gigabytes right now is plenty for just about everything that currently exists, but we are seeing games that are pushing that past 8, around 10, and then, I mean, I understand it's an AMD marketing video, but the Godfall showcase video did say that they were using 12 gigabytes of VRAM, and for those of you who are gonna say it's allocating that much VRAM, maybe, but the word he used was using, and I do think that as we go into the next couple of years, it will be realistic to see games pushing that 10 gigabyte limit. And I don't want to be spending that much money. If I was going to budget $700 on a GPU, I don't want to have to worry about being able to just click Ultra and be happy for the next couple of years. So that is a bit of a concern for me. Honestly, if NVIDIA had just come out of the gate with like a 3070 Ti that was a slightly cut down performance-wise 3080, but with like 12 gigabytes of VRAM, they'd have had my money right then. And you know what? There's still a chance that I'm gonna hold off and see if that's a card that they actually produce. If that came in at like $600 with close to 3080 performance and more VRAM, I'd be on board. I'd be right there. I do want to go with NVIDIA, honestly. That's really where my gut tells me. But their offerings right now just aren't what I want. So what do I want? What does AMD have to do? Because they have an opportunity to steal a loyal, well, I mean, loyal might be the wrong word, but a happy NVIDIA customer for 6 years. And AMD really should try to take this advantage of this opportunity to gain market share, right? They are way down in market share compared to NVIDIA. So there's a lot of people like me who have been very happy with NVIDIA and haven't really been looking for a reason to switch. So AMD has a rare opportunity here with the fact that the Ampere GPUs are having such supply issues, and also with the fact that the AMD GPUs have a lot more VRAM. That's a good marketing point. And they also, according to AMD's performance numbers, look like they will finally be competing at that high end. So what do I specifically need from AMD to be there on launch day instead of waiting a few months and seeing how NVIDIA responds? Number one, I tried to find out if there's a leak of their review embargo, and I couldn't find it. So as far as I know, it's still up in the air on when will we get independent reviews of these cards. Unfortunately, AMD with their Ryzen CPUs that just came out yesterday, they had the review embargo lift on the day that they went on sale. And for their CPUs, honestly, that wouldn't concern me. They've had a couple of generations of CPUs that have proven themselves and proven their performance, and I think trusting AMD and buying one at launch for the CPU side is a little bit less of a risk. I'm nervous that that's gonna be their plan on these Big Navi GPUs. Give me the independent reviews at least the day before launch, so I have a chance to make an informed decision as a customer. Otherwise, I'm not buying it on launch day. I'm not buying a mystery GPU for those prices. I'm just not gonna do it. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, I'm definitely gonna be there at launch, because if I'm not, they're definitely gonna sell out. And I agree they're gonna sell out, and there's actually, I'm not really reporting on much news today, I didn't see anything that exciting, but there was a quote from somebody who apparently works for Asus. Is Asus or Asus? I don't know, but the point is, he's claiming that he thinks that the 6800, 6800 XTs, all of those, he thinks they're gonna sell out like instantly within minutes of launch. And I'd agree with him. And I think the board partner cards don't come out for a week or two after the initial launch of the AMD reference designs. So if you don't get right in there mashing F5 right on launch day, who knows how long we'll have to wait. And this is a bit of a side issue, but if you're considering the supply thing, I don't mind them selling out instantly at launch. I expect that fully demand's super high right now. What matters to me, and where I think NVIDIA's let everybody down, isn't that they sold out. It's that they haven't been able to ramp up supply in the month. It's over a month now, isn't it, since the 3000 series cards launched. There's a lot of people still waiting to get a 3080. Now, so if AMD sells out at launch, fine. But if they start to get stock every week, if they get restocked with a good shipment every week throughout this holiday season, I think they'll be fine, and I'd be happy with that. So that's a big thing for me. It's not whether they sell out in minutes, it's whether they start to restock. I want to get independent reviews before launch day, or else I'm not sitting there mashing F5 buying a mystery GPU. Now, what mysteries do I need answered? AMD's performance numbers they've released look really good, and that performance looks good enough that if it's even within a few percent of that, I get that they probably cherry-picked some games, and yes, some of the benchmarks they've released, they did say had the smart access memory turned on, and some didn't. Regardless, if their performance numbers are even in that ballpark, they look really good. And I'm fine with that performance, except for something that independent reviews tell us that those don't. Those are just giving us frame rate, which you just have to assume is average frame rate. But in a lot of independent reviews, you're gonna get the 1% lows. When I'm gaming, I want it to be smooth. So I would actually be happier at 120 frames per second stable than if I had 144 frames per second that would occasionally dip down to 90 and then back up. Because as you're playing, that's gonna feel jittery and not smooth and immersion breaking, or if you're playing something competitive, it could make you miss a shot. So for me, not having big dips and things like that, the frame time variance, the smoothness, not having big dips in the lows, to me, that's a huge factor in purchasing a GPU. And AMD's benchmarks aren't giving me that. That's one of the things I need to see in an independent review before I'm gonna put my money down on this. What else do I wanna see? Well, this one is a bigger deal to some people than others, but I do want to see ray tracing performance because in this last generation, I didn't buy the 2070 because it was an RTX card. I didn't buy it for ray tracing, and I think the only game I played, I played 2 games that even offered ray tracing. I think it was Shadow of the Tomb Raider and Control. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I didn't bother turning it on because the performance hit, in my opinion, was not worth the visual quality. In Control, I tried it out, and as long as I turned on DLSS, it was fine, but without DLSS, the performance, it just wasn't worth the visual upgrade. So that also brings up the other issue of DLSS. And we know AMD's working on some kind of a competitor to that. And honestly, DLSS to me, because it has to be implemented by developers into their games, I'm more interested in technologies that are going to be widespread. And I think ray tracing will be a widespread technology. So for me, that's a bigger thing than the DLSS. Now, why do I think it'll be a widespread technology? Because the new consoles support ray tracing now. So when games are developed multi-platform, they will be developed with ray tracing in mind for consoles. So it's much more likely that we'll start to see all of the new games launching with ray tracing support. So this is finally the generation. I think this is really the first generation where ray tracing is actually going to be a big deal for some people. Some people still won't care. And I don't personally need AMD to be meeting Ampere ray tracing quality, but I need it to not be complete garbage. It'd be fun if I could turn on ray tracing and not have performance sink crazy low, especially compared to the Ampere card. So I do want to see independent ray tracing stuff. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll already know this, but here's the info I've been able to gather so far. Somebody did leak a Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark with the ray traced shadows turned on, and it's not the greatest ray tracing benchmark in the world. And supposedly it was a 6800, not a 6800 XT or 6900 XT that was being tested. And in that test, if you believe it, it's just a leak, it performed better than a 3070 and a 2080 Ti, but if they turned on DLSS, those cards did better, but I don't care about that because DLSS is kind of cheating. And yes, I know when it's available and works well, fine, but if you're thinking specifically about Shadows of the Tomb Raider, that's the old DLSS that, in my opinion, and yours could differ, and that's fine, it looks like a blurry mess, and I don't like it for DLSS. I know the newer ones look better. Anyway, the point is, if they're beating 3070/2080 Ti levels of ray tracing with the 6800, that's pretty good for me, because that should scale up even better for the 6800 XT, because as far as I understand it, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, AMD does have hardware accelerated ray tracing. They have ray accelerators that are built onto their, compute unit might be the wrong word, but they have one built into each of those, and as I understand it, the 6800 XT has more units than the 6800, so there should be more ray accelerators, so that should scale up along that lineup. There's some evidence that their ray tracing is going to be fine, but that leaked benchmark isn't a great ray tracing test. That's an old game that's only doing ray tracing shadows. I want to see something more strenuous. And if you want to believe it, I don't think I ever reported on this one, but I think sometime back on like October 28th, there were some leaks of another ray tracing benchmark where AMD was talking about the performance they could get in that, and then somebody could run that test on like a RTX 3080 and compare the results. And in that, it seemed like the 6800 XT would be about 33% slower than the 3080. But again, that's some kind of sketchy leaked source that's, you know, not actual just gameplay. Like, let's play a game and see how it works, right? From an independent review. So I'm curious about ray tracing, and that's the info I have on it so far. It's hinting to me like it'll probably be good enough for me, but again, I want to see strong independent reviews of that. Let's say I do get all those reviews and everything seems to meet my needs. Well, there's still the general like software package that NVIDIA offers, like their NVENC encoder is really good. I know AMD supposedly has some kind of competitors to these types of things, but, and again, you might have a different opinion, but as I've researched them, and I will admit, I have not used them personally because, like I said, I currently have NVIDIA GPUs, but as I've researched a lot of those software competitors for this streaming suite and things like that, it hasn't reviewed as well as the ones for NVIDIA. And that's what I've seen based on my research, not my personal experience. So feel free to argue about that in the comments section, okay? So I'm just saying there's other reasons why I'm still tempted to go with NVIDIA. All right, guys, my camera actually died a second ago, so let me wrap this up. So what I'm really excited to see is, what is NVIDIA gonna do in response to this? Because the more and more I think about it, like I said, unless we get really strong independent reviews and everything looks fantastic before the launch, I might not be there hitting F5 on launch day. I might wait and see a little bit. How does NVIDIA respond? Because again, if they come in with a 3070 Ti with almost 3080 performance, with more VRAM for a reasonable price, like $600 or so, that might still be where I'd like to go. And I'm not in a position where I have to buy right this second. And you can always get stuck in this trap of waiting and waiting and waiting for the next best thing. And it's true, you'll always get something better later, but for the same price. But do you want to just keep on waiting and waiting and waiting? And that depends on where you're at right now. If you really need a GPU upgrade, just grab one. You're going to be happy with it. If you're pretty okay where you're at now, you might be like me and don't rush into things. Wait and see how this plays out, because the one thing I actually am sure of is that it's us gamers that are winning right now, with AMD finally competing at the high end again. I hope you guys have an excellent day.